1968 Coronet RT, a Dixie Dodge for rebel racers. We manhandle Mulholland in Mother Mopar's slipperiest sedan. On NASCAR super speedways for 68, Dodge is replacing the problem-plagued Charger fastback with the Coronet semi-fastback. It's more aerodynamic despite not looking like a humpback shipping crate. The Charger's fastback roofline acted like a wing, lifting the tail off of terra firma. Though Coronet's new styling is overshadowed by the 68 Charger's sexier Can-Am profile, it is suddenly 70s compared to the boxy, over-creased 67 Coronet. Charger's designer, GM defector Bill Brownlee, knew full well that his new Charger's deep-set grille and flying buttress roofline were super speedway poison, creating lift in high-pressure zones. So the Coronet has a flush-mounted grille and a flush rear window on its sleeker new roofline. Even the flared rear fenders are designed to fit neatly over the massive NASCAR tires without the need for cutting, further minimizing aero drag. Coronet RT no longer has a curb weight advantage over Charger, as it carries most of the same standard luxury trim like bucket seats and adds a longer rear overhang and a heavier back window. Yet even Coronet's longer overhang is salutary for high-speed stability. We wrung out the Dixie Dodge in the haughty heights of Mulholland Drive, which rises arrogantly above the smog of L.A. Perched on their privileged precipice, the effete ears of the well-heeled were assaulted by a raucous rebel yell as we roared up and down the steep and twisting path to where the better half of L.A. rests their ambitious, greedy heads. The Dodge takes up lots of room on this regal road and leaves behind plenty of skid marks, but all told, it comported itself with aplomb. The Mopar 441 engine weighs 630 pounds, only 20 more than the Chevrolet SS's 427 mil that we wrung out last year. This makes the Coronet just as nose-heavy as the Impala, with nearly the same curb weight of around 3,800 pounds. However, it doesn't deftly dance through the bends like the Chevrolet, but manhandles them into submission. It's a stiffer setup than the SS 427, but while Impala has a rear anti-sway bar that allows a four-wheel drift, Coronet can do nothing but mercilessly scrub the front tires in hard cornering. Of course, there's a solution to the problem. You just stab the throttle and point the front end with a wailing power slide. Despite our attitude of hell-raising good old boy rebellion, we wouldn't back up our bravado by hanging the tail out into the oncoming lane of traffic on Mulholland's tight blind corners. Broad sweepers at high speed are much more in the Coronet's NASCAR wheelhouse. We were dismayed but not surprised to find we'd shaved about an eighth of the tread depth off the front tires in the course of an afternoon. Through sheer overwhelming engine power, we even passed a Pontiac GTO and a posh Porsche 911. One thing we couldn't seem to pass, though, gas stations. The 441 responds to the stress of hard work like many he-men by drinking very heavily. Dodge is a senior intermediate and measures within an inch or two of full-size Fords and Chevys. RT enjoys 11 by 3-inch front and 11 by 2.5-inch rear drum brakes, usually found on big cars, while regular Coronets and Ford Fairlane use 10-inch brakes. Still, when careening down Mulholland, even these big binders were insufficient, as serious fade began to rear its head about halfway down. Our only saving grace was the good compression braking from the 441 and manual transmission in third and second gear. On our test track, it could be stopped in less than 140 feet from 60 miles per hour. Not a bad result, but not in keeping with its acceleration. Mopar cars use a long leaf for a compliant ride, but thanks to the extra leaves in the RT suspension, it doesn't exhibit the irritating brake axle hop we've experienced in other Mopar cars. You can get disc brakes in front, which mostly eliminates the fade. Their other big advantage is less of a tendency to lock up and panic stops, although we didn't find front lockup a big problem. Dodge and Plymouth offer the most standard cubic inches of all the Detroit supercars. You also get more standard horsepower, 375, than GM supercars offer in their expensive Ram Air versions. It has the lowest rated horsepower peak of the supercar genre at only 4,600 RPM. The Dodge Magnum, also known as Super Commando at Plymouth, does have a lumpier camshaft with 268 degrees of intake duration and 284 degrees of exhaust duration. Curiously, using a nearly identical cam and free-flowing heads in the new 381 cubic inch high-performance 4-barrel engine, Mopar shows a 5,200 RPM power peak. We found the 441 would rev easily to 5,000 RPM and could be pushed to 5,500 RPM before valve float set in. The best thing about the Magnum engine is that it doesn't need to be revved high in order to perform. It impresses you most right off the line and in the mid-range, where it offers that uniquely American virtue of effortless power. Though the big engine is usually hooked to Chrysler's great torque-flight automatic, when teamed with the 4-speed in our test car, it really proved itself by unleashing thrust at the slightest pressure on the foot feed. The 441 has the biggest bore in Detroit at 4.40 inches, combined with a relatively short stroke of 3.625 inches. The literally magnum-sized bore mostly eliminates valve shrouding and improves airflow, with lower piston speed and friction than the long 4.07-inch stroke 427 Impala. We believe the 441 should be rated closer to 400 horsepower, though its rating is 10 horsepower less than the Impala 427. Our experience with the Coronet RT confirmed our suspicions. It noticeably outpulls the Chevrolet 427 and 390 horsepower Torino 7-liter at low RPM. The RT has an impressive 150 mile-per-hour speedometer, which we thought was a bit laughable. That is, until we were able to wipe most of the dial in our top speed run, all the way to 127 miles per hour. This speed corresponds to 5,100 RPM and gives Dodge a top speed edge over the Chevy Impala SS of 4 miles per hour in our acceleration trials. The Coronet proved itself equal to Ram Air GM intermediate supercars, tripping the quarter mile in just 14.45 seconds at 99 miles per hour. One unfortunate change in the Coronet is the trunk. Last year, it had a clever recessed tire well, giving the trunk 22.2 cubic feet of usable space, up to 5 cubic feet more than Fomoco and GM full-size cars. This year, Dodge puts the tire out in the open, where it can leave marks on luggage. Usable volume is still in the full-size range at 17.4 cubic feet, but we missed the previous arrangement. 150 mile per hour speedometer crowds 50 to 100 into an unreadable blob of numbers. Dodge instrument panel is shared with Plymouth Satellite. It's not nearly as swank as the new Chargers, which has deep-set round gauges standard. It does share easy-to-use rocker switches, though. The tachometer was better than nothing, but relatively small, and so it only gives a general idea of engine revs. It's also far enough to the right to be partially hidden behind the steering wheel rim. Dodge will offer the Charger instrument panel as an option if you get the tic-tac clock tachometer. We'd recommend it. Chevy supercars, Nova Chevelle and Impala SS, have SS, silly simulated, hood vents that look like ashtrays. Dodge couldn't be left out, so it puts on a useless bulge. The Dodge's only other optical offense meant to appeal to the hamburger stand hot shoes is the dual bumblebee striping that wraps around the rear fenders and trunk lid. The good news is that you can get the RT without them if you order one up from the dealer. We got the manual transmission, but not quite the same one they use in the race cars. The inland linkage lurking under the floor requires TLC. If you try speed shifting, you'll surely bend it. It's a shame because we feel Mopar 4-speed ratios make more sense than GM's wide ratio Muncie. It has a lower 2.66 to 1 first and taller 1.39 to 1 third that offer an easier time off the line and less shifting around town. It mates well with streetable axle ratios. Dodge bucket seats are less comfortable than GM's. You sit bolt upright, and the seat, as in all Chrysler Corporation cars, is mounted too low in relation to the steering column. The wheel is also mounted too close to the driver. It's been a problem for years, and we're just one among a host of car chroniclers that have complained about it, but Dodge still hasn't fixed it. Coronet RT has different bucket seat upholstery than the fancier Charger, but the same lack of lumbar and thigh support. The headrests are an extra cost option. You can't really rest your head while driving unless you like looking down your nose at the road, but they are a safety boon in preventing whiplash in rear-end collisions. We thought the white vinyl seats were both stylish and utilitarian. They reflect heat from the sun instead of soaking it up, and should be a requirement for hot, sunny climes like in Southern California. Coronet's center console has more room and function with floor lights than the console in the Chevrolet Impala SS. Though the Coronet is virtually identical in length and width, and even has an inch longer wheelbase than the quick-size Impala, Chevy somehow carved out more leg, hip, and shoulder room. Dodge lists only 31 inches of rear leg room, thanks to the forward-mounted seat under the semi-fastback roofline, though it feels like more than that. Coronet's Plymouth Satellite corporate cousin with a formal hardtop roofline lists 36 inches of legroom, the same as the four-door sedan. Still, the more rakishly roofed Coronet remains a true five-passenger car, as the shortened new G-body Pontiac GTO and Chevelle SS 396 are more like large pony cars this year. Despite being direct competitors, the particular Coronet RT and 67 Impala SS 427 we tested are priced at two distinct points. The SS 427 Impala costs a cool $5,000 and had countless creature comforts, including expensive four-season air conditioning and a stereo tape player that represented $700 of the sky-high sticker price. The Coronet RT was a much better value by eschewing expensive stereo sound and air conditioning, as well as the pricey styled wheels that are quickly becoming a de rigueur accoutrement of the supercar clique. Still, it did have many of the good things in life, like a rear seat speaker, power windows, remote control mirror, a tachometer, a simulated wood grain sport steering wheel, and a surprisingly expensive vinyl roof. It evoked plenty of supercar status and priced at nearly $1,000 less than the Impala SS. The RT starts off as a pretty good buy since, unlike GM supercars, which come with 3-speed manual transmissions, its $3,400 base price gives you the excellent TorqueFlite automatic set up for high RPM shifts. Though there are some upsides to the 4-speed, and it doesn't cost any extra, we recommend sticking with the automatic. It's literally the best automatic in the world, and we were sure we could have pulled off a quicker quarter-mile time with the automatic. Considering the recent wave of tape-striped muscle cars like the Buick GS350, the Torino GT, and Oldsmobile Cutlass S350, which prominently feature mag-styled wheels and fat tires combined with small, lukewarm V8s, the Coronet reminds you it's for real every time you floor the go pedal. You know you aren't riding a mild mare with a fancy saddle, but a thoroughbred stallion. The Coronet doesn't need a lot of options, like GM's, to truly be super. Even if it isn't our cup of tea, we still dig it for being the real thing.